Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you might be in this fine world. You're listening to the Startup Selling Show, talking sales with Scott Sambucci. That's me. Today's episode is a bonus episode. What? What's a bonus episode? I'll tell you what a bonus episode is. In the last podcast episode, we interviewed Richard Smith, who is the co-founder and head of sales at Refract. Refract is a platform that helps you improve your sales conversations. Well, after the conversation officially, air quotes, ended with Richard, he and I hung the line. I had the recording going, and we just had another 15-minute conversation about sales, where we talked about the importance of product demos as a catalyst in your sales process. We talked about how critical it is to qualify your leads and some of the reasons why we need to have sometimes a much smaller pipeline than we think we need to have, and how important it is to just be vigilant about qualifying those leads and thinking about our sales pipeline and holding ourselves accountable to a higher standard when it comes to selling our stuff. So I decided to just create a second podcast episode with Richard and think of this as a bonus cut or a producer's cut, whatever you want to call it. I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation. You're going to learn a bit more, and more than a bit more. You're going to learn a lot more based on how the first episode went with my conversation with Richard last time around. So this is just kind of a part two, unintentionally, with Richard. So it's about 15 minutes long or so. It's a little bit shorter than usual because we're taking this out as a bonus truck. But again, I think you're going to like it. I'm really glad that I kept the recording going because it was a good conversation. I wanted to make sure to share it with you here. So that's it for now. Thanks for listening to the Startup Selling Show. Please do leave a review wherever you're listening to this podcast, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, wherever you're listening to this. Please let us know how we're doing. The reviews get us jazzed, get us excited, and help us bring you even more great content. Okay, that's it for now. Scott Sambucci signing off for now. And here's the second part of my conversation with Richard Smith. Dude, you're good.
No, I enjoyed that. I just felt like it just ended up in a bit of a, conversation, but that's kind of what I like to do. So
yeah, I think it's the best way to get people to share their stuff. I mean, we love having subject matter experts because there's so much to selling. And like no one person can be the expert in everything. It's like you use the doctor-patient analogy. Like you go to your family doctor, and then they refer you to a specialist, and the specialist refers you to a specialist, and everybody's got their role in the medical care. And it's just like that in sales, man. I mean, you've got domain ownership on sales conversations, man.
Yeah, no, like I appreciate those comments, and I'm a kind of a big believer that I still see myself as fairly young in my sales career in the grand scheme of things, and I've still got a lot to learn. And I think if I think back to how I sold even sort of 7 years ago, I sort of cringe a little bit and feel like I've learned a lot, in my time at Refract about what effective, great sales conversations sound like. I still have sales calls, with people that I speak with, and I come off and I know I've done a terrible job, and, nobody's perfect. And, that's why we should always be trying to get better. But I love talking about the topic. And I think, hopefully there's some good stuff there that people can take away and put into practice too. So
some very good stuff. That's good. If you go back 7 years, man, I can go back to like 7 months and cringe about stuff I said on sales. I'm like, oh man, that was really bad. And I've shared this with other people where I've said, like, every time I hear the voice, when I hear my sound of my own voice selling, that's when I know I'm screwed up. Like if I hear myself selling and I know when it's happening, I'm like, oh, I'm selling. And I don't want to be selling. People are like, what? You teach people how to sell? I'm like, yes. But there's the right way to sell and there's the wrong way to sell. And if I have to feel like I'm pitching or convincing or pushing or cajoling, that's not what I want to do. I just want to open doors, solve problems, have conversations. And then, for the people that are the right fit, they get it. And the people that aren't the right fit, then you can't help them all.
Yeah. And that was one of my, I think, big lessons in sales, was just this acceptance that it was very simple. Someone said to me, you've got to get comfortable with the fact that far more people are not going to buy from you than they're going to buy from you. Because I went through a stage of every single opportunity I had, and I used to come off every single demo and say, oh, that was awesome. Oh, they loved it. Oh, they're going to buy. Like that. And it was until I actually, I think, realized and got comfortable with the fact that I just need to get really comfortable with telling people at the start of the conversation, saying, listen, there's a good chance at the end of this call we figure out this isn't a good fit, and I'm perfectly happy with that, and let's establish that at the end of this call rather than making this a wild goose chase. And people like that. Prospects love that kind of, they know that they've got that get out option, that, oh, I'm not here, and the only outcome of this conversation is that this person's going to expect me to buy from them. And when you give them that just little kind of option, and you just get really comfortable, and you just feel more relaxed, and you're just comfortable with people not buying from you, and you think, oh, maybe they just weren't they were never going to be the right fit for my company anyway. And that was one of my biggest kind of lessons that I learned in sales, that I just feel really kind of transform my mindset. But coupled with that, the only way I think I could get really comfortable with that was by creating a big enough pipeline to say that, if 1 in every 4 people I speak to, or 1 in every 5 isn't going to buy from me, 4 in every 5 aren't going to buy from me, I'm perfectly comfortable with that, because I've got enough people, to make up the numbers.
Yeah, that's a much healthier perspective on, the old sales adage about like every no is one step closer to a yes. And that's, that's what I was like, oh, you got to get some no's, just get some no's. You're fine getting no's because it's a step closer to the yes. And I think that's still a sort of a negative way to think about the no's, as opposed to the way you're positioning, which is like, look, it's just not a fit for everyone. I get it. I know what our conversion rates are historically, like 1 out of, hey, just so you know, 9 out of 10 conversations of people that inquire about our product, it's not a good fit. We don't end up working with you. So just letting you know, you've got a 1 in 10 chance of buying from us.
Yeah. What do you typically see is, like, from the type of people that you work with, Scott, what do you typically see as some of their kind of biggest kind of pitfalls? Is it that do they kind of hang on to opportunities more than they should? Do they just struggle to identify maybe sometimes initially what is a good opportunity and what isn't? Like, what do you tend to see with the types of people you work with?
Yeah, it comes down to, I think, the one place that if people said, like, if you didn't even know who you're going to work with, and they're going to walk in with a pipeline and a process, what's the one thing you'd look at? The one thing I would look at is lead qualification. Yeah. Because like so many times clients will bring into our program and they're like, oh, I've got this pipeline and I got to get X% converted, because then I have to raise this capital. This whole chain reaction is based on the pipeline they have. And they have this expectation, like, okay, I got these 15 deals in the pipe, and if I just got to get 4 of them across the finish line by the end of the quarter. And I'm like, all right, like maybe we can, maybe we can't. I don't know, because I'm not the one that's qualified them. You're telling me they're deals, but I don't know that they're deals.
Yeah.
And once they start dropping off, or once we go in and really look at and do like an analysis deal by deal, I'm like, look, man, you got 15. You're saying you have 15 in the pipeline. You actually have 3.
Yeah.
So let's just, in the future, let's learn from this, and let's improve your lead qualification from the beginning, so you're not 6 months down the road with somebody who's not going to buy. Because they get frustrated. Oh, I sent a proposal. I'm waiting for this. I'm waiting for that. They're not getting back to me. What am I doing wrong? Like, you're not doing anything wrong. You did something wrong way back here.
Yeah.
And then secondly, let's work on your lead gen, so that, like you said, you've got a bigger pipeline of better leads, and then you're not stressed about, okay, shit, now I only have 4 left.
Yeah.
For real, I got to convert 4 out of 4 in order to hit this number that I said, not 4 out of 15. So lead qualification is the one place. And that goes back to asking hard questions and being willing to disqualify people out, and just knowing what a good conversation is and what isn't.
Yeah, totally. That's so reflective. I kind of like, what I see even in my own sales team is just, it happens obviously everywhere. I think it just, again, it comes back to being just really strict and blunt with yourself about, is this actually an opportunity, or am I just hanging on to this because they seem like they liked it, and it's, they liked it is not a reason to buy. And I think it's like one of the things when we analyze people's conversations, and we start working with customers, I still see so many salespeople basically relying on their product to do all the selling, and it's just like they're just like demo monkeys, is what I describe. They're just there to just do basically product tours of like essentially what anybody in the business could really do, of like showing off all these menus and features and thinking that the product's the thing that's going to get the person to buy. And in fact, it's never really about the product. It's about like the problems that they have. And, probably only 20% of your product is actually going to be relevant and meaningful for the problems that they've got. And I just see it so often now that people forget about the conversation aspect is so key, and they put all the eggs in the product demo basket, and they end up just saying, oh yeah, the prospects seem to really like the product. Doesn't mean they're going to buy.
Well, you mentioned this in your early in our conversation where you said in the discovery phase, that's where the sale is won or lost.
Yeah.
Because you're right, because it's where you're building trust, where you're showing authority, and where you're discovering if there's a problem that you can solve. Like, the product is, and this is something else that we teach all the time to our clients, is like too often like an out of the box CRM, the sales stages are what? Like lead, demo, proposal, contract.
Yeah.
Like a demo is not a destination in the sales process. It should be a catalyst from one stage to the next.
Yeah.
The demo is just verifying what you're verifying, that you can solve the problem that they said they have, and they trusted you enough to spend 30 minutes to look at the product.
Yep.
So from there, it's like, okay, now we get into implementation questions or objections or integrations and all the other stuff. The demo, like you said, it's not about the product. And that's again where I think the technology and process part of selling has really overtaken the human side of just like, yeah, of course we solved the problem. Here's validation that we're doing all the things we said we could do for you back in that discovery call. Now that you've seen it, the next steps are this, and this.
Yep. Yeah. Me and you are both on the same page there. I think especially in the world of like SaaS and software sales, like so much emphasis gets put on the demo. It's like, how many demos have we done last week? And what's the demo to deal conversion? I'm thinking like, it's not about the demo. It's about the thing that happens before the demo. It's about like we should only be doing in-depth demos to people who we've established are a good fit. And I think so many companies and sales teams basically they totally dilute the discovery, which is the most important part of the sales process, because they just think it's all about doing the demo. And most prospects don't want to sit through hour-long demos. That's the truth of the matter. They get, the average attention span is like 10 minutes or whatever. And, it's just this problem exists prevalently. And I also think it's a big opportunity for salespeople. The salespeople who figure that out, who actually understand that it's not about the product demo. That's not the kind of the holy grail is just doing demos. They actually become more successful when they upskill themselves in the part before that. There's the opportunity.
Yeah, I made a career out of selling stuff that wasn't demoable. When I was at Blend selling enterprise software, like we didn't have the thing built. I we have to go 3-4 sales calls. And this was with executives at banks, like chief customer officers and SVPs of lending. And we're doing is talking about their problem and what we do and how the platform. And it was like, and it was funny because we'd get a couple conversations in, and then they would finally say like, oh, we should probably take a look at what you guys are doing. I'm like, oh yeah, we can do that. And then I have to go like poke Ian on the shoulder. I'm like, dude, we need to spin up a demo instance so I can actually show these people something. Or we did like a 2-minute animated kind of like a pre-canned video with Apple Music kind of in the background. Like, oh, this is how this thing works. Like, oh, that's awesome. Even though it wasn't built, we had 6 to 9 months of selling before we really had an actual product to demo. And it was a really good forcing function to like focus on the problem, because you're dealing with SVP of lending at Wells Fargo. Like, they don't care that the button's blue.
Yeah, exactly.
What they care about is like, do you understand my problem, and do I believe that you can solve it?
Totally.
And that's where like you said, that's like the sale happened before we ever showed up on site to show the product.
Totally. Completely agree with you. And it's, as someone who's bought software as well, like sales tools and things, like, man, I'm on the receiving end of it. So I see the bad, and, just tell a story about, being this data product that we were looking into, and it was just an awful experience. It was like, the Zoom call started, the account executive just kind of, asked me a couple of pleasantries, and then boom, it was like, right, let me share my screen with you and let me take you through this product. And I could have literally, if I wasn't on webcam, I could have literally went and made a cup of coffee, came back, and they wouldn't have even realized I left the room, because they were still showing me how I could do this, and this is how you do that. And it was like, God, you don't even understand why I've even requested to book a demo with you today. And it's just crazy. I kind of like, I sort of knew what the product could do. I just wanted them to understand that they could help me. But anyway, I guess that's where the opportunity exists for people like me and you, I guess, Scott. So it's all good.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, even our coaching program here, people ask me all the time, like, why don't you have like all this more information about your coaching program on your website? Because there's like blog and podcast and all this other stuff. Download a copy of my book. And I even had this week where I was through a sales process with a team of the founder. And at the end, he's like, you haven't given me something to buy. I'm like, ready to buy something. Why don't you have me like ready to buy something? I'm like, because it doesn't matter if I don't think I can help you. Like, all of this conversation is for me to know if you're in a situation that I can help you, and for you to feel like I'm a person who you want to work with for the next, 12 to 36 months to get you to 10 million in revenue. And in some ways he was a little bit like frustrated, but on the other way, I'm like, no, this is the way it is, because I could put up on our webpage, like, oh, here's the coaching program. This is how it works. You get these many calls and this Slack channel, blah, blah, blah. But that's just the product.
Yeah.
They don't want that. What they want is the outcome.
Yeah.
And until I've gotten really clear about where they are, what they need, if I can help them, then the product doesn't matter. Because it's like our numbers are less than 8% of the people that we even talk to for an initial conversation, we even invite as clients. And it's not because we're excluding people. It's just like, it's not a fit.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm not going to spend my time pushing a product and talking about a coaching program for the 92% of people that we're never going to get to that point of the conversation anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're doing demo good service by letting them know that too up front, is like, people, rather than just, putting them into a round peg into a square hole, as they say.
Right.
But no, anyway, I've really enjoyed the conversation, and
yeah, we'll have to do this more often, man.
Man.
I really enjoyed the time. Thanks so much for spending so much time with us and with me today.
Awesome. All right, Scott. Good
speaking,
man.
Take it easy, man.
Cheers.
Talk to you later. Goodbye.